Mick Hucknall, a new album, a new Simply-Red sound, I reckon. Tell us what's new.
A friend of mine, about a year ago, at a party, an Irish friend of mine, we had a few drinks. He's a fellow musician and said to me, sure, you're a great soul singer. And that stayed in my mind so much so that I started having this idea to have songs, and I thought, well, I should be that. I should be a blue-eyed soul singer. That's what people think I am, and that's what I'm going to be. And so the style of songs, once the songs started coming into my head, you know, if you can imagine, I'm sat there watching TV, you know, like I usually do sometimes after walking the dog or having my breakfast. I sit there watching some TV, and all of a sudden these lyrics come into my mind and a melody, and I get my iPad and my mobile phone and I write down the lyrics on my iPad and I start singing the melody into my iPhone. And that's how I began writing the whole album. And the first song is the first song on the album, Thinking of You. And I just kept saying to myself, be that guy. You're a blue-eyed soul singer. That's what people say you are. Be that guy. And that's the brief for the whole album. So the album is probably the funkiest album Simply-Red have ever made. And also it's got some sort of soul ballads, Complete Love, Sweet Child, and Tonight, Take a Good Look at Yourself. They're very much soul ballads, and then the rest is just pure funk.
Mm-hmm. Would you agree that the album was kind of going back to the 70s? Because I don't know all the songs. We all know this Thinking of You because it's already out, and we know the cover artwork, of course.
Yeah. It's got that retro feel, but it's like a modern take on that, you know, and it's our sound. The great thing is we don't sound like anybody else. You can hear the influences, but I think you hear influences on all British artists. You hear influences of blues and rhythm and blues in Rolling Stones records. You hear it on Led Zeppelin records. You know, British music has always used African American music as an influence, right from the time of the Beatles, when they used to play rock and roll and Bo Diddley and in Hamburg, actually.
That's right.
On the Reeperbahn.
We'll come back to that later,
Reeperbahn.
actually, with all the British people coming to Hamburg and becoming successful rock stars, or just being here for getting drunk on the Reeperbahn. But we can talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
About this one song, Thinking of You, the one that's already out. What is that one about? Love, I guess?
Well, and most these days, I am mostly at home. I love being at home. I've spent the last 12 years bringing up my daughter, which is the reason why I stopped Simply-Red in 2010. So I've really cut down on the amount of work that I have. And to answer your question, Thinking of You is really about my unit. My unit is my wife, my daughter, and my dog, who is also a girl. So I'm surrounded by beautiful girls.
Okay, that's nice. And you will turn 60 next year. Sorry to talk about this.
Yeah,
you're welcome. Yeah. But does age have any influence on a sound of your music? Or in other words, like, can you try to escape age through young music? Is that possible or not really? Or not even necessary?
I don't even consider that. I love aging. I love growing old. It is the whole point of being alive, is to move forward and enjoy the aging process. The thing you must try and do, all of us, is to stay healthy and happy and strive to be happy. And if you're not happy, you have to have the courage to do something about it to make yourself happy. So that's my message to you guys. Yeah, you. Watching on TV, yeah, you right there. Be happy. Try and be happier. Find a way of being happier and keep healthy. That's what I do. So I hope that I'll live for as long as possible and enjoy a happy life.
So that way, maybe the next question, you already answered that one, because I wanted to know Simply-Red, when it was found in the 80s, and after that, are there any specific years or an era that you would consider the best time of the band, like in terms of music or emotionally, or is it maybe today?
I would say now, because the joy that I have now is that next year I will be able to perform some of these new songs with the older hits. And this will give people who like Simply-Red's music a whole year to listen to this album and hopefully enjoy it. And then therefore, when they come to the shows in October next year, they know the songs. Because one of the biggest problems, I think, when you have a new album is that some artists, they tour immediately and then their fans go to the shows and they don't know the songs. So they're playing these songs and people are going, well, yeah, it sounds good, but I don't know it. You know what they buy a ticket. They spend their good hard-earned money to come to my show, and I want them to have a good time. That's the biggest thing. I want to share that moment with them, and that's what I've always tried to do.
So in other words, when you will be on tour next year, actually I wanted to ask you, how is it going to be like, more melancholy or more party? So you would like it to be more like a party, right? With people enjoying the new songs and not always thinking back of the old times?
It's a little more complicated than that. In the seating venues, the people who have the front row seats, they pay more for those tickets than the people at the back. So what I have to do, I have to respect that fact. So what I try and do is, in the first part of the show, we've had such a huge amount of success with the ballads, the slower songs. So what I try and do is I play some of the slower songs in the beginning so as not to encourage people at the back to come running forward to start dancing. I love it when they do that, but I have to have respect for these people who've bought these expensive tickets at the front. So, but they also have to accept that in the second half of the show, chaos will ensue, and we will all be dancing pretty much to the end of the show. That's how I love to have a good time, and but I also have respect for the people who spend this money, you know.
In the past, you've always been very open about your own personal life history, like growing up with a single dad, without a mom. You were kind of poor, I think. That's what I heard in other interviews. Maybe sometimes not enough money to buy like good shoes. And how do your early years still influence your way of thinking and acting now, if they do?
That's a great question. I still look for a bargain in the supermarkets if there's anything to go on. But my father was an interesting case because he's one of those people that would never go on welfare. And these are almost like the unsung heroes of our society. They are people just on the edge of poverty. And my father was always a few pounds close to being poor, you know. He couldn't afford to buy me new shoes when my feet was growing so fast. So I had badly fitting shoes and bunions, whatever, on my feet. And he couldn't afford these things. But he would never go on welfare because of his own self-respect. He couldn't bring himself to do it. And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. But I think he's an honourable and honest person for doing it. But yes, we were poor. We were on the line of poverty for 16 years of my life. You know, that has an effect on you. But I try now to be free. You know, in my mind, I try not to have these kind of mental restrictions, especially around my daughter, because you know, my daughter doesn't know it yet, but she's already a millionaire. She's going to inherit my wealth. So I'm not going to start giving her lectures about being poor. What I need to do for her is to prepare her to deal with all that money and make sure that she handles it responsibly, so that it's a completely different world for her.
Right.
and I have no intention of trying to impose anything of my life because it's completely different to hers. You know, it's.
So I mean, she may know something about your past, but it's not like you're pushing it on her.
No,
like
because
crazy.
we're not poor, and I'm not gonna start. There's no point because it's just not her life. It's not her world. But the joy for me is that she's very artistic, and so artistic people don't really care that much about money. You know, it's not something I think about. I'm wealthy, but I'm wealthy because I'm artistic and creative. So I focus on being artistic and creative, and the money sort of takes care of itself, which is great. You know, it's like a lot of stress free, you know. But it's very interesting. I've met a lot of very, very wealthy people, far wealthier than me. And what's been amazing is how bloody unhappy they are. Extraordinary. Some of the people I've met, you know. They have all the money in the world and they don't know how to be happy, which is a bit sad.
And one thing that makes you happy, I guess, maybe it still is, I hope it still is it still Manchester United? It will always be, probably. And this is a very soccer or football crazy city as well, in Hamburg. Do you know anything about the Hamburg soccer clubs? Ever heard anything about St. Pauli?
I must confess, I don't know really anything about German football except when Manchester United beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League final. I remember that very well. I have a very good memory for that. I went to my first game when I was 8 years old in 1968, and I was very lucky enough to see Sir Bobby Charlton and George Best and Dennis Law play. And I started following the club, going to matches when we were actually relegated into Division 2. I sort of lost interest in football a while, and then when Manchester United got down into Division 2, I thought, my club needs me. So I am used to my club not winning all the time. It's not everything, but I feel I'm very happy with the club now because Ole Solskjaer is very popular with the backroom staff when he was a player. He was a player with the club, and you feel that he's part of a tradition. So I hope we start winning more, but I love my club and I love my city. You know, growing up in East Manchester in a kind of poor working class environment, football was the big escape for working class. But I think now many of them can't afford the tickets.
That's what I heard, yeah. You know, it's kind of like here we have 2 second division teams now in Hamburg, so we understand what you had to go through when Man U was playing second division. We, you know, 2 teams in the second division in a big city like Hamburg, everybody's cheering to make them go back to Bundesliga.
Well, that's exactly what happened, because when we were down, imagine in I think it was 74, 75, there were 60,000 people in the stadium in Division 2. That's very inspirational.
And now in Hamburg, we often refer to our city as a very British city. You know, of course, they were the Beatles who started their career kind of in Hamburg. And then we have a lot of British people coming here to the party district, the red light district, Reeperbahn. They have their bachelor parties here. So every weekend you hear a lot of British English. What are your personal memories of maybe Reeperbahn, Hamburg? Do you have any party memories of the last couple of decades?
I'm not a Reeperbahn kind of guy, quite frankly. But I very much enjoy, whenever I'm in Hamburg, I love to spend hours walking around the lakes. I love to walk in this city. I love also the architecture on some of the boulevards, the big old houses. They're very, very beautiful. Hamburg has always had a very particular kind of energy. I always, I think, right back to the first shows. I think it's a place called Markthalle, is it?
Yes,
yeah.
Still exists.
That's where we did our first show here, and then we started playing in the Sporthalle. And always there's a great energy here with the people, the enthusiasm in the shows. So, you know, I don't want to speak bad, but I have to say I think it's probably my favorite German city. Although if I ever go to Munich, I'll probably say the same thing. I don't know, I have to, but I love Hamburg.
Sounds good. Now that you're in Hamburg, you're allowed to say stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's cool. Of course, now we've been talking about partying, and you've been open about like you have been a party kind of guy, lots of alcohol, lots of, maybe drugs and girls. But when did you decide and why to draw the line and move on?
Well, I just got bored, and I wanted to move on to a second stage of my life where you become a father and a husband and enjoy a different lifestyle. And that just changed my lifestyle. I was a bachelor, I was a bachelor, and bachelors do crazy stuff, and you just want to kind of. But I got tired of the nightclubs and the late nights and something seemed very empty about it, very shallow, and I just got sick of it. I wanted to change, and I was very lucky to find such a fantastic woman to marry, who's incidentally German, and so I have an even stronger connection with Germany because having a German wife.
And of course, we know that one of your albums, Stars, it's actually still one of the most successful albums I think ever been sold in Germany, with 1.25 million copies, and I think worldwide you may have sold like 50 million copies. Do these numbers make you proud? How does it make you feel to reach something like that, 50 million copies?
I don't know these statistics, but I feel very happy. I feel very fortunate, actually, and lucky in a way to have had such a consistent career. It's been very much sort of like that, not like that, and that's been the biggest joy, is really the consistency of it, and very much enjoying touring, performing. I don't tour as much as I used to, but next year is just a European tour. It's not a world tour. The beautiful thing about Europe, of course, is everything is close by, comparatively speaking. So you get on a flight, you're like 2 hours away from everywhere in Europe, and that means I can be at home, I can see my family more often, and so I just am very content with my career and how it's gone.
Okay, Mick, one last question. What is your favorite pastime aside from music?
My favorite pastime is wine. I am a wine fanatic, I think. It's my hobby. Strangely, I'm not a heavy drinker, I'm a moderate drinker, and I only really drink with food, but I love to try wines from all over the world. I'm a great admirer of German Riesling, and it's just my passion.
Okay, Mick Hucknall, thank you very much for the interview. It was
My
a pleasure.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.